Hello everyone, I'm here on page 10.3a, Technical Skills Part 1. We're going to be going over Artboard 3 and all the type tools. And there's a lot of crossover from Photoshop, so this should be a little bit easier than Artboard 1 and 2. Okay, so I'm going to start over here, and I'm going to hold the spacebar, slide over to Artboard 3, and then just like there are differences between different types of anchor points, there are two different ways we could use type. So if I grab the type tool, and you can see I could pull all these tools out. So these are the variation, all these different type tools here. I usually don't use these here because the area type tool and the type and a path tool, we're going to be using those automatically with just the regular old type tool. So I'm going to close that out. So if I just click once, that is called point type, right? So then there's going to be auto text filling in like lorem ipsum. It's kind of like gibberish in Latin, just text to filler text, so you know that there's I started using text here. So I'm just going to start by typing my name. And then if I hold the Control key, that allows me to use the selection tool, right? So I could go in and I could change the size, but I definitely would never want to do that. If I accidentally change the size that way, I would hit Control Z to undo it. I wouldn't try to move it back. But this is editable type. I could always go back in and change what the text says. But I'm going to go over to my selection tool, right, my main selection tool, and I'm going to make this bigger, but also hold Shift. So I make this bigger. Anytime I'm using a heading, I'm going to use point type because I'm not going to go into my character panel or up here, right, and change this to different point sizes. I probably need my heading to fit in a certain area. So that's where I'm going to like grab the corner with the selection tool and kind of change the size as I need. So that's point type. Now, area type is when I use the type tool and I just click and drag. And now I've created a text box. And you can see it's automatically filling with text, and I could select all this and make it much smaller. This time, I'm going to use the character panel and then change the size so it's a lot smaller. And then I'm just going to add a bunch of other text, right? So I'm going to hit spacebar a bunch of times, enter, got a bunch of text here, random letters here. That's why. And then now when I go to the move tool, the selection tool, when I try to change the size of the text, all it does is change the size of the text box itself. Something to note, you can see all the text here, but if I make the box too small to where some of the text is not visible, I'm going to get a little red plus sign right here. And then you can't really tell this is red because my selections are red. So if I went to my layers panel, I'm going to double click on this layer and change the color to, there's already a green. We'll do magenta. And then you can see how this is a little red plus sign. That's indicating that there's overflow text, meaning that like there's text that's not visible. And if we copy body text from a client, we definitely would want to keep a lookout for that. So that's area type is for body text and paragraphs. Point type is for headings, right? So those are the two main differences. Another thing we're going to need to know is like when type is editable and when it's not editable. So like I'm going to again use the type tool. I'm going to click and I'm going to type in 2 letters. Let's do GV, right? My initials, and then I'm going to go back to the selection tool and make this bigger. And then you can see I could always double click on this here or go right to the type tool and I could start changing what it says here, right? I could tell that this is type because there's a baseline underneath it, and this is type here. So like, but let's say I wanted to take this G and then make this curve much wider, or let me grab a different typeface. So I'm going to use Arial black. And Arial black doesn't mean the text is black, even though it is. It means that it's the boldest version. So let's say I want to like make this 1V go longer here, right? So like I can't do that because it's type, but if I go up to Object, Expand, and it's going to ask me what am I expanding this, just like if I was image tracing or any sort of action where it's just a preview, if I expand it, now they become shapes, right? So I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that. Another way to do that is to go to Type, Create Outlines, Shift Control O, and I use that keyboard shortcut a lot. This gives me text now as actual shapes. So if I use my direct selection tool, I could take and edit these just like any other shape, right? I could change this around as I please. One thing though, whenever you expand something or create outlines, it automatically groups them together. See, if I grab the selection tool and I click on one, I automatically select the other. So I need to hit Control-Shift-G or go to Object, Ungroup. And now I could click off and then click back on the G and have them overlap, right? Or do whatever I need to do with them. Use the Direct Selection tool, twist these around. Maybe I want to give it like some fangs here. So like now it's got cat ears, right? So that's another way to manipulate text. And so what we're doing on artboard 3 is we're going to make a business card. So to do that, we're going to grab the rectangle tool and a standard business card. So I'm just click with the rectangle tool, clicking once. The width is going to be 3.5. 3 inches, 3.5 inches, 3.5 inches. And then I'm going to hit tab, and then the height is going to be 2. And that's a pretty standard business card size. And then I'm going to give it the default stroke and fill, which is a white fill with a 1-point black stroke. And then I'm going to press the V key to go up to the selection tool. And I'm just going to move this maybe right over here. And then what I want to do is I want to use this as a frame for my business card. I'm going to move these things around, but I don't want to ever move this. I want this to be locked in place. So I'm going to go to Object, Lock, and then lock the selection. So now you can see like I can't select this. Another way I could have done that is if I undo that here, I have this selected. It's on my magenta layer. I could see it's right here. I could just click the lock right there also. That does the same thing as going to Object, Lock Selection. All right, so now I'm going to take my name. This business card is going to have me on it. Oh, and this is interesting. So it has a white fill and a black stroke. This is behind. If I want to arrange these differently, that's under Object. Or I could go to the Layers panel and I could see that this is way down here. I want to move it above that. This is also going to be behind. So another way I could do that is go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front, or Send it backwards. So that's what the brackets are for. So like Shift Control, that brings it all the way to the top, right? And so now I'm going to put my name right here, and then I'm going to hold Shift, because this is point type, and shrink this down. And then I'm going to want to use a bolder typeface. So this could really be anything, but we want it to be like kind of a bold typeface. So I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to use Bungee, right? So this is going to be kind of like a techie looking one. And then I'm going to hold Shift again and shrink this down, however I want it to fit. And then I've got my area type, right? I'm going to line that up. I could even use a guide here if I wanted to, make sure those are perfectly aligned with each other. And then I'm going to type in like my dream job. So for me, the dream job would be retired with triple pension. And then you need to have at least 2 lines of text. So the next line I'll put like where I want to be. I'm going to be on the moon. The dark side of the moon. No, just the moon, right? And then you could add a 3rd line, but definitely not a 4th. So I have 2 lines of text. And you can see now when I have those things in here, I'm going to, if I want to make them smaller, I can't just use the selection tool and then shrink these down like so, right? I would have to go in and change the actual size of these. But there is one way where I could switch between point type and area type. So say I wanted to shrink these down without changing the point size. This little line right here, if I double click on this, that changes this to point type. See how it's a white fill now? Now I could go in and I could hold Shift and I could make this much, much smaller. I'm going to make it about that size. And then I want to bring it back to area type. I'm going to double click on this little dot here. You can see the icon's telling me you're going to make this into area type. So double click, and now you can see it's filled in, and now when I change it, that's area type again. Okay, and those are the requirements. So then you could also change the color if you want. Like, you want this to be purple, and this, if that's purple, make this. Well, no, that looks really bad. I'm gonna leave it at black, or maybe like a gray. And that's kind of what we're looking for on artboard 3, is that you're playing around with these, and then you can see how you could change these to shapes instead of type, or if we have area type versus point type. And that's all for artboard 3. Again, always contact Mr. V or Mr. Olivo if you have any questions, and I hope you have a great day.